Attention, bobsled riders! You will soon be embarking on a thrilling podcast down the icy slopes of the Matterhorn. So please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the bobsled at all times. Auf Wiedersehen!
Hello, Yodelers. We are the Matterhorn Yodelers. I'm your host today, G5th, with
Jackie.
and
I'm Wrecker.
I love Wrecker. And that kind of leads us into what we're going to talk about. And so this is music too. I'm going to play.
I loved on Disney Plus. It always gives you the option to skip the intro, but I'm like,
Never.
This intro lasts like 2 seconds. Like,
I know.
by the time it takes for it to load the skip, it would have already passed.
Yeah.
They do that. So yeah, we're going to talk about Star Wars Bad Batch. It just finished in early May. It's a 3-season cartoon
Story arc.
story of that started in the last season of Clone Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like there were fragments of it like released before Disney decided to bring back the last season of Clone Wars.
Right. There was already a plan to release, because like before the Bad Batch came out, there was the Clone Wars story arc with the Bad Batch, which that was made back before Disney had bought.
And so you
Star
see like this
Wars.
weird like the CGI frame or the
Right.
computer animation. They were just like wired
So,
like
like, this-
with heads.
So Bad Batch was always a part of Lucas's plan for the future of Star Wars.
And also Ventress's story as well,
Yep.
which got turned into a book. And
Whose story?
Ventress.
she was she's one of the evil generals.
Remember
of the
Count Dooku
Confederacy.
had the bald female
with the double
enemy with
lightsabers.
Oh,
two
yeah.
lightsabers. She has her own story that was going to be shown, but then they're like, you know what, we're going to turn this into a book. And so they kind of scrapped that for the
Gotcha.
second season. Then they put like this weird pirate, like 2 episodes where you're like, get to the story for the last season of Clone Wars. But so Clone Wars introduced the Bad Batch. And these are, you know, what are they called? 99s?
They're Clone Force 99,
99, which is defective
Which
clones,
is-
which they're not regs.
which was in reference to another clone number 99.
Number
And
99.
he was like he's like Quasimodo.
He's the Quasimodo, and he had his moment to be a hero,
Right.
And it was a really good story.
He was like the old one, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And so but these guys all had unique traits. You have Hunter, who's the leader. He's kind of the Rambo.
Yeah, he looks like
He
Rambo.
looks like
Yeah.
Rambo, and he's got a tattoo. Half his face has a tattoo of a skull, like silhouette. Really hardcore looking, has the bandana, and he's notorious for having the knife.
He can like what was it?
Sense
He can
Sense-
track.
things? He's got.
He can track things.
Oh.
He's like tracking electricity. Like he has that like ability to like. It's something like.
I
He's got,
just
like,
thought
that-
he had like Spidey senses.
I would say it's closer to Spidey senses.
Okay.
It's not the Force Spidey senses. It's like just more attuned.
Something's coming.
More attuned to the environment around him. And then you had Crosshair, who was
sniper.
the sniper.
Yeah.
And then you had Tech. He was the brain.
Really?
Pure logic.
I thought he would be the muscle.
No.
Tech.
Tech.
And then you have Wrecker.
he's the muscle.
He's
Yeah.
the muscle.
the
And so,
demolition expert.
and so
He's the comedy relief.
Yes,
yeah.
he is.
So it's this show is centered around them, and then their, I guess, older sister, who's actually never aged, Omega.
Right.
And so before we go into the spoilers and we review the series, would you recommend this show, or who would you recommend this show to?
I mean, I definitely, if you watch like Clone Wars, it's a good fit
Yes.
to watch it. But I mean, I haven't finished watching Clone Wars, and like I followed it pretty easily. Like, it's not a hard series to watch, and so even like young kids like could enjoy it, I would say. So I would say watch it. The episodes are not very long.
They're 24 minutes.
So, like, if it's kind of one of those, like, I just need something on in between me leaving or something like this, but I enjoy Star Wars, it's worth putting it on.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's definitely geared towards the fans of the Clone Wars series. You know, if you enjoyed the Clone Wars series, you're gonna enjoy Bad Batch. It's the same type of formula for the most part, except you're with a specific group of people the entire time. Instead of bouncing around from battle to battle, you're with this group of people the whole time. But it's the same animation style. It's the same storytelling style. And so, obviously, if you're invested in that world, you're going to get more out of it than a person who didn't watch the Clone Wars series. But it's not necessary to enjoy it. I mean, if you enjoy Star Wars world building, this is a good series that does that helps show that transitional power from the way the military transitioned from the Republic to the Empire.
It does.
Yeah.
So yes, it takes place at the very end of the Clone Wars, and it continues on to the transition of the Empire. I agree with you guys. It's really, if you weren't interested in like what happened in that time period, then it's not for you.
Right.
It fills in the gaps that Disney Star Wars is trying to fill in with the cloning. Where like, where did Emperor Palpatine come from in The Last Skywalker? This is where it's filling in, and they're pulling in from Heirs of the Empire and
This is Dave Filoni's storytelling.
yeah.
That's what the Bad Batch
And
is.
he is the
And Dave Filoni is like,
The second coming of George Lucas.
yes, and he loves
Big picture Star
Ahsoka and Rebels and all of that. So
yeah. So, but the thing is with this one is not about Jedis.
No,
no,
they're barely in it.
They're barely in it. You'll see one or two lightsabers, but it is not that. And from the intro, the music that I played, you hear that drumming. It is military. It's spec ops or special operations. They do a really good job, and it's about the clone experience post Clone Wars. And so if you want more information, it's going to give you that. Okay.
I always felt that like if they didn't make Anakin a general, they would have put him in charge of this force, and he would have like that would be a cool series with Anakin and
Doing special
Clone Force
operations.
doing special ops, like
Because that's what he is. He was a renegade. He would break away
Correct.
and like,
Yeah.
and you see that
in with their
And-
story arc in the Clone Wars.
in the Clone
series.
Wars. So, all right. So if you don't want to get spoiled with what we're going to talk about, watch the show. It'll take you like, if you want to push through, you can do it in a week. But it's a lot to do that.
3 seasons.
Three
yeah.
seasons, 15 episodes, 16, and then a 15.
And the episodes are like 20 to 30 minutes.
It's about 24 minutes for each
yeah.
one. So with that being said, it starts with the Clone Wars and a special, like, Captain Rex gets that, like, hey, they're beating us. I don't know how they're doing it. Basically, one of their old regs, Echo, was like a Borg.
Yeah,
Was tapped in.
They turned him into a. Borg.
They turned him into a Borg, Star Trek reference in a Star Wars movie or show.
much.
And they get in the best, non-reg clones to do the special operation. And they go with General Skywalker, and they get Echo. And so there's like
Which-
4 episodes, and
Yeah.
it shows like how this team works, and it's really cool. It's nothing like watching clones
No.
like shoot and like mass wave. No,
It's
they're
special ops.
It's special ops. It's so cool to watch, and
like everyone has their speciality and point and role on the team.
and they flow.
Yes,
And they work, and that's what you see. And then Clone Wars TV show ends, and then a Bad Batch show begins, and boom, Order 66.
Yep,
But they give us a little bit of Rebels. They give
did.
us Caleb
Caleb
from
Rebels.
From Rebels.
Yeah.
And he's,
They were there.
They were
when-
reinforcement, and then they get Order 66. But these guys are like, what's going on? Like, this is weird.
Because it's like their chip wasn't working.
There's an inhibitor chip, but their defectiveness
stopped it.
stopped
from
it. It
taking
doesn't
into
work
effect.
for them. And so you get a little bit of Rebel crossover, and then you get back
Well, it
to
explains why Caleb is alive.
how Caleb escapes.
Yeah.
Because, like, you see him later in Rebels, and how you always want to know, how did they make it? And that's what's really good about these shows, is they get some of these loose ends that fans are asking.
Yep.
Like, where does this person come from? Where's this? And you get that with this. They go back to Camino, and then from Camino, they find out the Galactic Empire has been formed, and everyone's like, yeah, the Clone Wars end. They're like, what's going on here? And then they are sent to take care of irregulars, right?
Right.
And there's skepticism about like clones and how they're going to be used. Grand Moff Tarkin does not like
Clones.
He's like, no, we should have regular soldiers. We should not be reliant on things we can't control, but somebody
Yeah.
else can control. And then he's like, no, that doesn't
I
really
believe
work.
in brainwashing.
Yeah, and so they go on this mission, and they're just regular people. It's Saw Gerrera, right?
Right.
And they're in Alderaan, and they're like, we can't just kill regular people. Yeah.
With the Boogale. Boogale will know.
Yeah, and so they get put on this mission, and they don't kill, and then you see the schism between Crosshair,
Yes.
who's like, a good soldier follows orders, and you get the rest of the group going like, nah, this isn't,
This is a
this is what we do. We don't
This is-
kill people that are not a threat. Like, yeah, like they're used to killing. It's easy, clankers, killing the metal, soldiers.
yeah.
That was easy. You're not killing people, and that's where like you see this schism, and so they have to escape. And what do they end up doing? They end up rescuing Omega. They meet Omega. Pretty much the show revolves around
Omega's the star of the show.
It's centered
her
really
show.
around her,
Yeah.
but it's really about the Bad Batch. But the whole mission is to protect
Her.
her
Yeah.
and survive as a group.
It gives Mandalorian vibes, and this came out the same year, Mandalorian.
Yes.
And so it definitely gave
Like
That-
I remember
that
that
first
feeling. First
season.
season, like we got to protect this little one,
Protect
Yeah.
the child.
protect the child. Yes, and then, yeah, it was easy to see like, oh, are they just following the same story? But obviously, it does.
it does change.
It does change as you get more of the strategic thinking of Star Wars and what they're trying to do storytelling for filling in the little gaps that have happened. Yeah, so they end up having to go rescue Omega at Camino, and
She's
then,
an unaltered clone like Boba Fett.
yeah, so she's first gen.
Yeah.
First, and so she isn't aged much. She's like what? She's like 7, 8, 9 maybe.
like that.
Yeah.
While all the other ones are like fully grown men.
But
You
only
know.
like a year old.
But yeah, they're all And so yeah, Camino's been taken over by the Empire, and
So with Omega, were they just trying to create a new type of clone?
No. So Omega was created by Nala Se,
Yeah.
right? That was
Yeah.
her name. And
she's the like head scientist.
Yeah, the big
Where she
scientist.
talks and it was kind of
really
like-
slow, like this.
and so like she was more protective of her because she knew
She was special.
she was special. There was something different about Omega than the other
She was a girl.
clones.
Yeah.
First of all,
But we find other girl clones
yes,
as well.
Dr.
later on.
Carr.
Yeah. But like there's something different about her. And like she's important to Nala Se that enough that like she hired bounty hunters to go track her down when she
Separate
disappears.
bounty hunters.
Separate bounty hunters. And so to try to make sure that she is safe and protected because she knows potentially she could be used for nefarious purposes, which at this point we don't know what those could be.
No, I mean, if you follow the grand picture, you
You
kind of knew
know.
what was going to happen. But to the
If
casual,
you're oblivious, yeah.
Yeah.
What's an M count?
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know what an
The
M
M count. Yeah. They talk about that. Metachlorians. He's got more than Yoda. Yeah. So I didn't talk about but Echo, who the guy they rescued, he joins the
He
team.
joins the Bad Batch because he doesn't fit the standard issue clones anymore because he's part Borg now.
Yeah, he's got an arm where he can tap into the
He's
computer.
half droid,
He's
half-
half droid, and he's really handy for infiltrating.
Yeah.
And he makes a really good addition. But yeah, they have to go on the run, and Echo has this lead who used to help Jedi, and it's Sid, who's kind of like this in-betweener. You know how Obi-Wan used to go to like the guy at the diner?
Dexter.
Yes.
Dexter. Obi-Wan.
So
How big your pocketbook is. Depends on how big. Yeah.
so yeah,
Interesting here.
Jedi's
And this character's in which?
Episode 2. Star Wars
Okay.
Episode 2.
yeah, for Obi-Wan, but
For
Sid,
Obi-Wan, yeah.
she's kind of this reptilian person, and she's not very
Yeah.
nice, and she becomes
She's-
kind of this safe house, like this quid pro quo kind of relationship.
You work
I'll help
for
you,
me, yeah.
And oh, you've racked up all this debt. You need to keep going on these missions to make me money. It's kind of dealing with like Watto.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
Yeah.
like, it's very like, I'm going to abuse this relationship for my benefit, and I don't really care what happens to you because I'm going to win no matter what on this. Yeah, so they're working together. They go on these missions. They meet Fennec Shan. You see her and Mando.
Mando, Book of Boba Fett.
Yep. And then they had to go rescue Muchi, the Rancor. That was a fun one. That's the Rancor from
Jabba's palace.
Jabba's palace.
That we end up seeing get murdered by Luke Skywalker, and we sympathize with the man who raised him. As
I
he
mean, the
cries.
name's Muchi.
Yeah.
It's just a Rancor, baby Rancor. So you meet that, and then Captain Rex makes a visit, talks about the inhibitor chip,
Right.
Yeah.
and then Crosshair Squad. He's tasked of finding them. They find them all at the scrapyard. Then bounty hunter Cad Bane shows up. He's the blue cowboy,
Yeah.
but they made him look really weird in Mando
And Boba Fett.
and Boba Fett in the Book of Fett.
Yeah, they did make him look weird in that.
Yeah, there's some people that just don't translate well.
They don't.
People with narrow heads
Yeah.
in the show don't do really well.
No, they don't.
Because like the Inquisitor, they made his head like extra round. I was like, but
Yeah.
his head's narrow. Like,
Yeah.
why are you
But
doing
he's a
that?
cone head.
He is.
He's a cone head.
So yeah, they do
A
that.
reference that most people don't even know these days.
So yeah, Cad Bane adventure. He's hired by the Prime Minister, the clone. Oh no, the Caminos, and Fennec Sand, like you said, was hired by
Nala Se.
Nala Se, and they're taken back to Camino. There's a lot of this you're seeing a story where Omega is being captured and wants to be taken, back to by someone, and so this is a reoccurring story that happens. And this is where Omega's discovering her value, and it really does set up the arc for the whole show of protecting her by the Bad Batch. Yeah, and we start seeing Omega's skills. She's really good at the gambling.
Yeah.
And like
she's a strategic.
She's smart.
she's smart and she's intuitive. She gets herself in a little bit of trouble, but she finds a way to help them and rescues them. Let's see. Yeah, you see this like two separate stories. You see Crosshair's story with the Empire. So his story kind of like we see what's going outside with the Empire side.
Because he's not with the group.
He's not with the group because he's all about, and they're like, oh, he's got his inhibitor chip.
and then you find out that he
never did.
He never did.
He's
He knew about it too, but he didn't care.
Yeah. But he was always like, no, I'm a good soldier. This is what we do. We
follow
follow
orders.
orders. And then he feels like the Empire's doing things because he goes, the Republic was, what are they going to do with us? We were going to be over. But this, he still finds purpose and being part of this group. How does the season end?
I think it ends when Camino gets destroyed.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah. Camino gets destroyed.
By
Oh, yeah.
they
Empire.
basically shut down the Empire, shuts down Camino, and going, we don't need your clone services anymore, and nobody else should. We're just gonna take your technology and your scientists
and kill you all.
and kill you and kill, like, basically we're gonna do genocide, and we're gonna say, whoa, the superstorm came by.
yeah.
Right.
And that's where you have Admiral Rampart being
Well,
the
this
villain.
is where you've got like, what is it, like the committees or like the
the Senate.
Senate.
Yes.
Like fighting for the clones' lives and
Yeah, with
The rights of clones.
Yeah.
Senator Tucci. That gets us into the season 2. And so the team was trapped in Camino as they were trying to rescue what were they trying?
Omega.
Omega. And and they do escape, and there's a moment with Crosshair and the team going, "Hey, you could join me." Both sides like, "You can come back."
Yeah.
You know, but they're just like, no, we're different. And I like the one statement by Hunter to Crosshair goes, we want different things. We don't have to be enemies. And I was like, wow, that was really powerful. You know, like,
It's a statement that needs to be said more and more this day
Yeah.
and age.
I thought that when I heard that, I was like, man, we need to stop making enemies of people
Yep.
and just be
Yeah.
like, hey, we're different.
but that's okay.
That's okay. It doesn't mean you're a horrible
Yeah.
person.
That's right.
And I saw that, and that really like hit me right now. Let's see. Yeah. So we also, season 2, we get introduced to Fee, the pirate. She's kind of this cool pirate, kind of another
She's
like,
a fun character. I
she's
like her.
Wanda.
yeah,
Wanda
Yeah,
she's Wanda Sykes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get like a nicer side of like, well, you know, running missions. And this is where you get like to the lull of season 2.
She's the treasure hunter.
She's the
Yeah.
the acquirer of
Yeah.
antiquities.
I don't know. It brightens up the episodes, I feel like, with her.
It's nicer dealing with her than Sid. Sid was
Yeah.
just mean, and
Sid's not
you've had this
likable.
like,
She
I
was
don't
never
like
likable.
there's. Yeah, she was just.
It was just someone's just like, I'm working with you, but I feel like I'm always getting a bad deal with you.
And she did. She really took advantage of that relationship.
Every single time.
Yeah, you get that. You get to see Commander Cody, and then you meet like how he goes AWOL.
Yep.
And you get that story more where the clones are like, this is not great. Oh, did I forget that in season 1 we did meet Harrison Dula and Chopper? They went to Ryloth.
yeah.
They did.
My daughter was she came in, she's like, that's Harrison Dula. And I was like, that's right. And she was all excited for that. My daughter's named after Harrison Dula. And so she was all excited to see that. So that was in season 1. So they introduced different characters that
Yeah.
they've been introducing post-movie and in the Disney era. But yeah, we get a lot of filler movies. We get the riot racing, the treasure hunting with
Season
Fee,
2 was probably the roughest.
the Wookiee
season.
Jedi, and then you get
Yes.
Senator Tucci, where she's starting to, like, what about these clones? You want this army of regular people, you know, but what about these clones? What are we going to do for them? And then that's where it all comes out. The Admiral Rampart, you know, basically blew up the clone or Camino.
Yeah.
And so that villain goes away. And then we also get introduced to Dr. Hemlock. He's like the head cloning doctor. And like the cloning, you know, that we see in Mandalorian and in the new Jedi film or the new Star Wars films. This kind of gets it started. And,
Right.
And
They've been referencing his project since the last season of Mandalorian.
yes.
Okay. I was like, he
The
was
project.
in Mandalorian.
He wasn't in
No.
it, but they mentioned his big project.
His project.
Project Necromancer.
Which, like-
Was that revealed in season 2 or 3? I think that was 3.
Season 2 with the Emperor.
Emperor comes in season 2.
I'm
Which
trying
is-
to think.
Which is interesting because, like, this project has been, like,
Actually, the Emperor shows up.
I thought it was 3. I thought he came in at the very beginning of 3.
I thought
Because Omega's there.
yeah.
Because that's when she escapes.
that's when she escapes. That's
Yeah.
season 3.
That's like the first episode or something.
And so, yeah, Dr. Hemlock's introduced, and he takes over the project, and he's trying to get, what's their name?
Omega?
No, the head scientist.
Nala Se.
Nala Se. I can never say that. Peter's gonna always say Nala Se.
I'm surprised I remember that.
You're
so.
really good at that. Yeah, Nala Se is like, well, the old prime minister, the politician for the Camino says, well, she doesn't work with you because she probably needs Omega. So then they're like, okay, we need to get Omega so we can get our scientists to work.
Right.
But it was really like she was just always trying to protect her.
That was the whole reason why she wasn't cooperating, because she knew that they needed Omega.
She learned
for
what the
their
project
project.
was, and she's like, they need this, and I don't want them to get this.
Find out.
They're going to...
It is-
She's going to be turned into a science experiment, and that's not what you want to have happen.
It is interesting to just think about the progress of this, like, secret project of, like, this started, like, basically Clone Wars. And it really, the results wasn't until the end of episode.
Some say maybe started sooner from... You see in episode 3 where Palpatine is...
Well, yeah, I mean,
He talks about his previous master
right. Doth Plagueis the Wise.
doing things unnatural. And he does mention that, like...
Unnatural.
Yeah, there are things people may find unnatural about this. Yes, cloning yourself, unnatural.
Yeah.
Trying to pass your soul into another person. Yeah, and we see that in the 3rd season of Mandalorian, that they do it because you get the villain from Mandalorian,
Yeah.
the governor. What's his name? I forget. But
It's nice to have, like, this backstory of it instead of watching it in the movies and you're like, did you just throw this in? You know, like...
it's a good filler, and it's creating the bridge.
Star Wars has been doing a decent job with setting you up with their next project with something that they did before.
Yeah.
So like they'll
And they'll
hint at
pull,
something
like, the
and then
different
be like,
strings, yeah.
remember that thing that we talked about in this other show? Well, we're gonna talk about that now. You know.
You want to hear something interesting? I saw this briefly on YouTube. This person goes, Omega is referenced in Rogue One.
Is she?
Yes. And it may not be directly, but when they're like looking at their secret files,
Oh,
and
the
she's
list
all
of
like,
things.
you know, like you
There's,
have
like,
Project Stardust,
Stardust
and then she just
and-
goes, oh, we have Project Omega Mark. And people are saying, oh, that's referring to this maybe.
It could be.
You know, the operation was to get Omega or find Omega.
What was Stardust? Is that...
Stardust was the Death
Death
Star.
Star.
Okay, that's what I
And
thought.
then they also talked about how to track in hyperspace. That
Yes.
was one of the Easter eggs in that one. Because the next movie after that was
a part of
The
that.
Last Jedi, which that was an integral part of that story.
where they're following them.
Yeah.
And they had to get onto the ship to disrupt that. So yeah, you're introduced to Dr. Hemlock, and he becomes like
He's the villain.
he becomes the villain
Yeah.
and
Of
the
the
boss
show.
that
He's a creepy dude.
He's a good villain. I liked him. as a
Yeah,
villain.
he was a good villain because you give that, like, creepy, like, you're kind of psychotic.
he has no affect in his voice.
He's like a Thrawn.
He
type
is like a
character.
Thrawn.
He's like a Thrawn, but probably a little less threatening than Thrawn.
More like scientist focused.
mad scientist
Yeah,
in that way.
of like, I just want this project and this.
Yeah,
Too.
Dr. Hemlock never felt like he was in control. Thrawn's always in
Right.
control, unless like it's one of these
Unless
cartoons.
Space Whales comes
Space
around,
whales come
you know.
around. It's like it's hard to produce. Like the space whales are gonna grab my ship and send me to an unknown region.
Right, exactly.
It's really hard to plan. It's like playing chess. You're all like, guess what? Giant boulder comes in and knocks your king over, and you're like, what happened? You're like, that was the space whales for
That
Thrawn.
was Space Whales, yep.
Yeah, because he wasn't very like military focused. He was just
No.
very like scientist based, and like if something happened like military wise, and they're like, "This is happening," he's like, "Then fix it."
Yeah. He was all about his science.
Yeah,
And he got the open checkbook from the Emperor, where he's
Yep.
all like, this is the most important project for this empire to last, because the Emperor believes he's the only reason this thing is, and it's true. Like he basically
Yeah.
formed it, and you see a little bit of that Emperor's movement when, you know, Admiral Rampart gets in trouble for blowing up, and he goes, "This just shows you he's so good at twisting it and playing both
Yes.
sides. Like he's gonna win
Yeah.
because he's playing both sides. Like, well, they're gonna do this, but if this doesn't go, I'll just spin it this way." And so yeah, that was you're getting this with Dr. Hemlock, and then at the end of season 3, they find the Bad Batch team, and Omega sees the destruction they're doing, and she's like, I'm just gonna turn myself in. You guys are gonna find me.
Yeah.
I know my brothers will get me and save the day.
It was
And-
like she could not see innocent people.
because they found a home in was it Phoebe or
Yeah.
Phoebe or Phoebe?
I don't remember the name.
Yeah. And so they found a home. It's like a nice little like island, kind of like Rapunzel's little like island, kind of city. And she's just like, they're going to destroy. We just know what they do. We saw what they did in Campino, and they're going to do this again. I'm just going to turn myself in. Maybe you guys can track me and rescue me, because they kept trying to find Tanis, because they're trying to find
Tanis? Is that where the Ark of the Covenant is?
Tanis. Yeah, maybe it's like Mount Tantus or something like this, or Tanis.
yeah.
And which was a reference in Heirs of the Empire. So that's
Right.
a Legends book where they're pulling from Thrawn. In there, they were doing cloning of the Emperor and Luke Skywalker. Really good books if you want something kind of like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-book series, and you get introduced to a whole new Star Wars
that's where you get, like,
universe.
Mara Jade. and-
Yep. And she's like she's no Jedi,
No.
but she's got Jedi skills, and she becomes Luke Skywalker's wife. So if you want a happier
Wow.
Luke Skywalker story,
You read.
you
that
read the
one.
books. Way more fulfilling than Blue Milk, Hermit, Mad at the
Depressed.
World. Kylo Ren ruined my school. Let me drink my blue milk in solitude.
It was green. His milk was green.
It's green,
That was
yeah.
green milk.
It was green milk. Yeah, you just sitting there, ooh, yeah. Way better story in the Legend stories. If you want a better Luke Skywalker,
Luke has children.
Luke has children. Han Solo and Leia have children.
Right.
And they're not big whiny babies.
don't.
Luke was trying to kill me in my sleep. It was, yeah. And
There's so much more to the Star Wars universe.
There is.
and they did a really good job in the books, and we'll talk about this later, but
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, they're in the secret base where they've got Omega. Omega escapes with Crosshair, because
Yes.
Crosshair had we skipped it. Crosshair had a really good episode where he snaps. He has a really bad officer that doesn't care about clones.
Season 2 was not a very good season for the Bad Batch group, but it was a really great season for Crosshair.
His character.
Every episode
Yeah.
that he was in that season was amazing.
Yes.
And it like set him up to the point where he realized that the Empire was not the good guy. It was not good to follow the
And
Empire.
they don't care.
right.
They don't care about anybody
Yeah.
but the machine of
Yep.
the Empire. And he goes, I thought we were going to do great things, but nah.
Right.
And there's an episode called Outpost, and it's really good.
yeah.
And yeah, I remember watching it, and I was like, that's the best Star Wars episode I've seen.
It was
Like,
amazing.
like of
So
all the
well
of all the like Clone Wars, and that was the one that like hit me where I was like, that was amazing. Maybe because we had a bunch of fillers, but that one with the overall story, I was like, man, that was so good. And so yeah, Crosshair's after he mutinies. He's there as a testing clone
yeah.
at this location that Omega's at. Omega sees that he's there, and they create this like great escape,
Yeah.
and they finally
did.
meet up with
Yeah.
the team. That was a really good escape.
Yeah. Well, and they got a new pet.
They did.
A little.
They got a new pet, and we did gloss over. Tech does die
At the end of season 2.
at the end of season 2. That was really
was
really hard. That
sad.
was really sad. But and they do like kind of like when you're watching him say back bye to Fee, the pirate. He's like, well, bye, and it was like this prolonged moment watching it the second go around. I was like, oh, they totally like
Yeah.
this is his goodbye to the show. But he, when you see Tech die, he just everything's about a calculation, and he just goes, this is the best thing for the team, and he sacrifices himself for the team so they can escape.
Yeah.
And it was a very heroic
yes.
and it was sad to see him leave. Yeah, so they do escape. Crosshair and Omega, they meet up with the team, and then how did they get How did they get caught again?
Oh, like how does Omega get caught again?
She turns herself in.
Oh yeah, she turned herself in. So she got caught.
She got caught
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
yeah.
time, escaped, and then
And then they find her at the home, and that's where
yes.
they attack the
and
island
then
place.
she gets she turns herself
Okay.
in.
She turns herself in there, yeah. And that's where the show will end, is at that location where she's rescued. And that was where they bring Admiral Rampart again
Right.
to get more information. And what did you guys think of the ending? The Great Escape, the chaos of it.
It was fun. It was a good ending. Like, like I loved,
It was like movie level, like how
Oh,
much
absolutely.
chaos.
Yeah.
Like I was like, it almost felt like Rogue One kind of chaos
Like-
and getting everything.
like you really saw Omega come into herself. Like she was no longer being overshadowed by the Bad Batch.
When she tried, she
She
gets
was
the
doing
escape of the
things
kids.
on her own.
she was and she was there to help the children and be like, all right guys, we can do this, and like
well, because
we're
like
gonna escape, and like
Yeah, she had
her-
no doubt that she was going to escape. She was
well,
like, I'm gonna
her
leave.
brothers were like trained her and spent all this time training, and now we actually get to see that talent. She's not like this helpless.
No, she's been
individual.
a pilot. There was the
Yeah.
one episode where like she's just like, there's this moving train. Let me just roll with these spec op guys and like hook on, and like she's on a train out up in the sky, and she's just like holding on. It's like she's special. If you're 9 years old and you're rolling deep with like Navy SEAL like
Right.
characters. But she had that confidence that she developed throughout the season and
Yeah.
all these missions where she was kind of in the way, but then she saved the day. But then she was a member of this team saving
was.
the day.
And the thing was, like, she wasn't like an annoying character. I would say, like,
she wasn't like Ahsoka season
Ahsoka at
1.
first.
Yeah.
Ahsoka was, I was like, I'd hate Ahsoka. And it was like halfway through the season, I'm like, Ahsoka's not that bad.
Right.
All right, I'll go with it. And then towards the end of Clone Wars, you're like, Ahsoka's amazing.
She's the best character in Star Wars. Period.
It's a good way. It's better to create a character you don't like and develop them to you start to like them, and then to where they're at this, as opposed to them being great and then seeing them like degrade over time. No, very. I thought it was really good. They brought in that electric Godzilla monster from season 2,
Right.
to create chaos, and it's like Omega saw it like to use. It's like, oh, we'll use this. This is how we'll get out. Create chaos in order to
Yeah.
escape. And there was, that moment where Crosshair killed Dr. Hemlock.
Yeah.
That was really cool, and it like bonded. They're like, she ran to him first before Hunter,
Right.
and it shows like the different brothers, and that's what I really liked about the shows. Like, like Wrecker was like the older brother, and
He was the
like,
goofball.
he was the goofball,
Yeah.
and Crosshair became kind of like that, like distant brother that where they build like a relationship later
they
on.
were together for a long time. Like when she was first captured,
Yeah,
they showed like it's been some time with like how long her hair's grown,
yep.
and like so she got to know,
Crosshair was he was very like angry,
He's
where he
bitter.
was. Yeah, I mean he was,
He's just like, oh, the Empire betrayed me.
and he tried to make an escape and he failed.
Yeah.
And Omega's all like, "We're gonna do it. This is what we do." And he's like, "There's no escaping." And he's like, "No, we'll do it." Like
Yeah.
The thing I thought was interesting with the ending was, did you see the ship that she flew away in?
what was the ship?
It was pieces salvaged from the Marauder.
Oh, really?
Because when it was blown up, they salvaged it and created her own ship.
That's so cool.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool how they got Tech's goggles,
His goggles.
which means they went back and got him.
Mm-hmm.
Because like he fell back into a ravine while they're going. There was no like, let's go back and get him while
Yeah.
like
Right.
the Empire's there. No, that didn't happen.
They went
So-
back and
so they went and they
retrieved
got their brother, and I was like, that's
That's cool.
because that was one
I
of the
didn't
messages,
get that. Yeah.
because they always had this, we don't leave anyone behind.
Yeah.
But they had to leave them behind because the Empire was chasing them after the terrorist attack of Saul
Right.
Guerrera. So I thought that was a really good moment when she grabbed his goggles because they're cracked. So they weren't spare goggles. They were
the ones he wore.
he was wearing, and I was like, that was a really good, touching moment that he was never forgotten, and he was always part. And Tech is the person that taught Omega how to fly,
Yeah.
and I was like, it was really good. There was a really
was-
good feel good, and that's what they did a really good job with Rebels. They created that family unit, and they did that same thing with this team. And what I really appreciated from like a military standpoint, they show the different personalities and how they don't necessarily like relate well together. Like you could tell that like Tech could not stand Wrecker,
right.
Yeah.
but they utilize each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they appreciated each other and protected each other. And that's kind of like what it was like in the military. Is like you're gonna be around people that you will never ever associate with. And
Yep.
even when you leave, you're like, I know I will never be around that person because I can't stand that person. But you knew their strengths and you knew how they can help the team.
They had
And you work together.
They had a uniting purpose.
Yes.
and that's what kept them together.
And the camaraderie builds with each mission, and the trust with one another going, we are all we have.
And they trusted each other wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And
There was never any doubt. No matter what the blood was, they trusted each other. The only time there was
Yeah.
obviously the hesitation
When
was
Crosshair-
Crosshair came back after being away for a while.
Right.
there's a trust, like Crosshair
Are
tried
you
to
gonna-
kill.
Are you gonna trick us this time?
Yeah. One also thing I really liked observation wise, I loved how the Bad Batch use stun rays.
Yes.
That was the like ring. They
Uh-huh.
weren't shooting with lasers. They were shooting like the same stun that like the Stormtrooper used on Princess Leia in the beginning of New Hope.
They didn't want to kill their brothers.
They didn't want to kill their brothers, and I was all like, "That's awesome!" Even though they were trying to shoot them, there were very few times that they actually shot stormtroopers with lasers. It was usually picking up another weapon, and it was very limited. But they were always trying to protect their brothers, and you see that with Rex, and Echo does join Rex,
Right.
and trying to collect those clones and preserving them. You see, Commander Wolf,
Yep.
and Cody, and it was really cool to see those characters come back because you see them in a little bit of Rebels, and you see them, but yeah, Captain Cody, it was like it felt like a nice reunion,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Clone Wars. Like I remember watching Clone Wars and going, I'm like, oh yeah, Captain Cody, but like you really not Captain Cody, Captain Rex.
Rex.
Yeah, that was
Rex was awesome.
Rex was awesome, and he was. I like when he was all like, what happened to your chip? And I was like, well, it's a long story. Like,
What happened to his ship?
it was in the end of Clone Wars. Ahsoka had to like have it taken
Oh,
out because
okay.
he was trying to kill her.
Ahsoka.
Gotcha.
And so he was like, whoa. We're cool, right? Like,
Yeah, overall the series was good. I was kind of like expecting someone like close that we love and cherish the character wise to die, like
Oh, at the end of season 3.
at the end of season 3, and so I had that expectation.
like Sid. Didn't we all want him to like come back and be like, hey Sid, you turned us in? Like,
But like, yeah, I just had that moment. And it was just like happy ending, like through the end, and I was like, okay, happy ending.
they went through a lot.
They did go through a lot, but like,
I think it's one of those things. I think
How many team members can you lose?
well, it's more of like if there's any group of people that deserved a happy ending, it was them.
It was them and like the clones.
The
like,
clones needed a happy ending, even though they don't get a happy ending.
No, not all.
But
of them.
like, as you know, it was great to see that like there are some people that do get a happy
Yeah.
ending in Star Wars.
yes.
And that was great. Obviously, they haven't announced anything. If I had to guess, they're gonna wait till D23 this year. But I'm predicting an Omega series.
Yeah, when she goes off to fight the
I can see
rebels,
that.
you can bring in because you don't have a Harrison Dula story at all
No,
about what happens post rebels.
Right. Like
How does she become general
right.
of the rebellion?
Like-
What's her part?
well, and like, what part did Omega play in the
the rebellion?
In the rebellion,
and the rebellion, and I think Omega and Harrison Dula will join up because there was the episode where they really bonded, where Omega's the reason why her family escaped and helped, Ryloth. And so I think that would be really cool to see them join up in a TV show. That's kind of my feeling with it.
Do you think they'll keep it animated?
Yes.
Yes.
It'll be in the same animation style, I feel.
I think it's easier for them, like production wise, money wise, for Disney Plus.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, those shows
Money-wise,
are
it
so
makes sense,
expensive.
yeah.
And Disney Plus is like, as we've seen with the streaming, it's like you can throw a lot of money, but it doesn't mean it's going to make you money.
Yep.
So how many Mickey bars would you give this show?
I would give this. I would rate this show over Clone Wars. So I would give it a 4.
Yeah, a 4,
A solid 4.
solid 4 Mickey bars out of 5. What do you give it?
I give it like a 3.7, like close to a 4, but not a 4. It's easy to watch.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so it's
And there's not a lot of filler.
no.
There is, but there
But the
isn't.
filler isn't like horrible. Like it's fun filler.
it's character building.
Yeah.
You're building a connection between the team and then seeing Omega assimilate into the team.
Yeah. It's definitely easier for me to watch Bad Batch over Clone Wars.
Clone Wars was created outside of Disney, and the last season was really good because it was leading up to
Right.
Order 66, and you end up with Ahsoka battling Darth Maul in an epic lightsaber battle.
Right.
I must say, like, one thing was like, yeah, the episodes were short, but I almost put that as a flaw because there were some episodes I was like, really? That was it? Like, can you just put 2 together and like be more satisfying?
They did do quite a bit of grouping where you have 2 or 3 episodes together.
Right.
And when you only have 15 episodes, you can only do so many. And yeah, there was the fillers where they go Kashyyyk, and then we got to help these people and it's got to be resolved. You don't want to spend too much time on a filler
Yeah.
storyline unless that character's coming back.
Right.
And those filler ones we didn't really see too much. I thought they did all right. I what, my gut says 3.5. I enjoyed it for the overall story. I love learning about the Clone War, post-Clone War, and what happened, and you really get a feel of how the Empire is forming. It would have been interesting to see a Darth Vader kind of
Yeah.
pop in, or the I guess the Inquisitors are too busy doing something, but maybe a bump in or something like that.
Well, again, this show wasn't about the Jedi.
It wasn't about the
No.
Jedi, and that's why I was all it would have been cool to see
Just
Darth
like
Vader
random
pop up.
cameos, like, oh,
Darth Vader
okay.
shows up going, "What's going on here?" and starts choking some people and be like, "All right, I'm out, guys." You'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, cool."
We got Palpatine.
We got Palpatine. That was
he
really
showed
cool.
up.
Yeah.
Because this is really his project and his
Right.
story. While Darth Vader's trying to conquer the rest of the universe.
Right.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed watching it all the way through
In one sitting.
in one sitting. Or not
In
one
run-
sitting.
in one run.
In one period. I found I missed things that they were referencing from season 2, like Admiral Rampart. I was like, oh yeah, what did he do? His big thing was season 1.
Right.
And the big electric monster, I was like, where is this coming from? I remember it from Clone Wars, but it was a reference in season 2. So they do a really good job pulling from within their own series to fill in the ending. Yeah. Also what came out, Tales of the Empire.
Yeah, that was like a surprise drop for May the 4th.
Yes, and this is in response to a positive response to Tales of the Jedi, which they talk about. They pick 2 characters, and they give you 3 episodes that are like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Really short. First one was Count Dooku, and then Ahsoka, and they kind of give them extra story. They
Extra
kind of
background,
they give you
yeah.
background to their characters, and then this one, they did Elsbeth. What's her name?
Yeah. The one of the bad guys in the Ahsoka
And the
series
Ahsoka
slash
series.
Mandalorian
with
cameo.
Thrawn.
It's with an M, right?
Yeah.
Morgan.
Morgan Elsbeth. There you go.
Yeah.
And then you get Barriss Offrey. I think that's her name. And she was the Jedi at the end of Clone Wars
That framed Ahsoka.
that framed Ahsoka to like go, hey, the Jedi are corrupt and they're trying to like do bad against the Republic. And that's how she was saved in Order 66. But no one knew what happened to her story. Because they reference her master in Rebels.
Right.
But you didn't know what happened to this person from Clone Wars. And the regular people are like, who's this person?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. I was like, okay, I know Morgan from the other series, but I haven't finished watching Clone Wars. And so this other person, I was like, I don't know
You've
who.
probably seen her. You just don't remember
She's
her.
Yeah.
she was a healer.
She spats here and there in Clone Wars. Like, she usually teams up with, like, I don't know if you remember when they go back to Geonosis. She goes there and hangs out with Ahsoka
and Anakin. And so there's that moment when Darth Vader walks in the room and she's like, whoa, I know that feeling. Like, I know who that is.
right.
But she doesn't know, but she knows that feeling. And she goes, like, this is evil. Like, but I know this feeling. And so, yeah, you get her story of like,
I think that her story was the one most people were interested in.
yes, because it was left hanging after
Right.
Clone Wars at the second to last season.
I felt like, yeah, it's for the super fans that know.
That's what this was for. 100%. This Tales of the Empire was 100% for the super fans that want to absorb all things Star Wars.
And you get more insight into the Inquisitors and like who gets
Yes.
in and who doesn't get in.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like
Well, it took
aggressive expansion from like the Joker. You
Right.
know, only one can survive,
Yeah.
and they have to use the dark side.
right.
You know, and she does that force choke. I was like, woo, that girl dark. You know, she you know, so that was probably the highlight of her story. And then they kind of like, she sees what evil they're doing, and she's like, I was not for the Jedi, but I ain't for this. Like,
This is a little too
this is
far.
dark.
Whole
Like,
level.
this guy was gonna join us, and you're like being all mean and killing people.
Well, I thought it was interesting because I think hers was a 3-episode arc.
Yeah, they're
right?
both
Yeah.
three episodes.
And so, like, I felt like the first two were about her, but I feel like the third one was about her partner.
yeah, because
That was who
Yes.
that was about.
it was, and kind of like
Which I
her
love.
ending.
I like that twist when they twisted the story where it's not about her anymore; it's about the other girl. And so that was the one thing I really appreciate about that. It was that they kind of like, oh, surprise, or flipping the script on
and
you.
it was the whole like, you could hear the panic of like, I can't go back to the Empire as a failure because I'll die, but you know, they'll hunt me down. I can't be free. And the girl's like, can you? You know, like,
right.
you know, like I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, even though you stabbed me with a lightsaber. You know, like, yeah, that was I thought it was a sweet moment
Yes.
of like, you always have a choice. You don't
Yeah.
like, you may have done bad, and they do that with Star Wars. It's like, you may have done bad, but you can still do good. You know, it's your story's not over yet. So it kind of like had that Darth Vader kind of like, there's always hope. You know, you just may need a little help or a little like, hey, hang in there. With Elsbeth, you get the Thrawn
Yeah.
introduction,
Yes.
and
How
you get,
their relationship.
Their
developed.
relationship.
I did like the Rebels reference to the TIE fighter she wanted to develop.
yeah,
Because, like, she was trying to pitch this faster TIE fighter with shields, which is what they talk about at the very beginning of Rebels.
with the advanced TIE fighters. And Thrawn's the only one that uses it because he sees the effectiveness of the weapon as opposed to the bureaucracy of going, that's going to cost me money,
Right.
and that makes me look bad if I cost the money. But Thrawn's all about winning, while the bureaucrats are all about looking good and advancing their career. And he goes, Thrawn's thought process is like, my career will advance with success.
Yeah.
So I'll eat the cost because I'm going to make great strides for the Empire with my success. And he does do that. Within like a short period, he goes from like a cadet to a Grand Admiral. And like he was already a captain in his previous like military. So he was already skilled. He doesn't know how to play politics. He only knows how to play soldier. And he sees in Elsbeth like, you're not in this for the glory of the Empire. You have your own reasons. We can work together. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be in the gunk of the Empire and trying to please them. You're for your own purpose, and we can do this together. And that's where you see Grievous, kill her mother in the first episode, which was so cool to see Grievous
Grievous come
back and kind of be a not fighting Jedis that you normally see him.
Well, you get to see the mass extinction of the witches.
Of the witches,
the Night Witches.
Yeah.
Of Dathomir.
Dathomir, that's what I was thinking of.
And you start seeing how they incorporate that from the Ahsoka show, where Thrawn is aware of the culture of the Sisters of Dathomir, or the Witches of Dathomir.
Right.
And how useful. And Thrawn's always been about using people's cultures. And so you get more of that story, which is important because we're going to use that
correct
in the city in the next season, and also probably the movie that's going to be created.
Is it so important that we learn about Morgan? Probably not,
because she's
no,
gone.
Morgan was just a filler because we know what happens.
Well, we want to know where she came from, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
For us to learn more about Thrawn's purpose.
Yes,
that was the point of them telling us her story, is for us to understand Thrawn's purpose, because he's coming back for the I'm assuming it's the Mandalorian movie.
It's going to be like it's going to be the big movie.
Yeah.
That they're going to try to introduce Star Wars into movies post Skywalker.
Right.
And I think this is the best way. You got to create this formidable enemy again. That's not original movie created. I'm hoping more for these type of shows, these cartoons.
Give me more.
What would you want to see?
You know what I really want? I want Legends books turned into these.
You get
kind of a multiverse kind of.
You can do this with any sort of. You can do Tales of the Bounty Hunter, Tales of the Smuggler, Tales of the Hutts, you name it.
Yeah.
You could do these little mini stories.
You could do mini stories, but I'm also talking about TV series. You can do like book story movies, and like you don't have to like take the risk of putting it in the movie theater and having the general public like it, and like the fans will be so happy to receive the books from 30 years ago, because you're going to get a better Luke Skywalker story.
I almost wish they would do this and transfer it over to Marvel.
And I agree. That was my next thing, is like, instead of doing these TV shows, like these grand, like She-Hulk, you could have done just the What If style.
Oh, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about this.
We've got an episode that's going to be coming out soon.
But like the concept of like Tales of the Jedi or Tales of the Empire could carry over to different universes.
I agree. I really, you can even bring the Marvel universe into Star Wars and have the Watcher like, oh, Luke, you like green milk? In this world, you have Mara Jade, a wife, Right. That would
be
well, I think that was talked about, doing a What If Star Wars.
Oh,
I
really?
think that was talked about.
And that would be the easiest way of branching this.
With the success of Marvel's What If, there was a lot of talk of doing Star Wars What If.
That
like, what if,
Vader
didn't becomes Vader.
What if you don't rescue Princess Leia from the Death Star?
There are those like, like, what if Luke realized he made out with his sister and goes, oh my gosh, that's more like Robot Chicken right there. So yeah, that's what I'm getting with this style. I hope I get more. I hear from other Star Wars fans, it's positive. They're like, give me more.
We don't need big things, but just a little taste of things.
And as Hollywood figures out where movies fit in this world, post COVID, I think this is safe to keep the fans
honestly,
engaged with the story and not forgetting
the
it.
universe.
These
In the
little
universe.
mini stories are easy people pleasers, whereas movies are hard people pleasers.
Because you're
You're
opening
dealing
up.
with critics that are just nitpicky on
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Right, but because the critics, they're not going to be critiquing a 20-minute segment story.
No.
They don't care. They're not going to waste their time with that, which the fans don't care. They just want to absorb the material.
We want more story from our universe.
That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a safe thing, and I think this keeps it relevant and on people's radars. And
It keeps it alive because you keep that universe alive. People go to the parks.
Yes.
You sell merchandise. Like, it's important to keep these little stories.
because the books don't.
No.
Books have the Star Wars book world. They're trying to create the High Command or the High Republic,
yeah.
but like books were big 30 years ago and keeping the universe going and without interrupting the movie world.
But now you've got kids that are like, the iPad
People
kids.
don't read books anymore.
No.
They'll listen to it now,
Yeah.
but they will not read it.
Nope.
Books are dying
Yep.
medium, and it's sad. I'm a book reader, but I also listen to audio, and it's so much easier on the go as we multitask. And so I think this is the evolution of the book universe right here.
Yep.
And in order to keep the super fans going and fans and creating a new generation of kids
Yep.
that watch it. My daughter lit up when she saw Harrison Dula, and I was all like, yes,
Watch more.
watch more Star Wars. And she was telling Mom this morning, she was all like, I want to watch Hera. And my wife's like, I have no idea. And I was like, go watch Rebels. And then
Yeah.
she grabbed her Harrison Dula doll, and she was just like, yeah, Hera. And then she went off to her like iPad time and like,
Yeah.
but there was that moment
Hey.
of like, me here, Star Wars, yes, positive. I'm like, that's great. That's where they're doing really well. All right, I think that concludes this episode. Follow us on our social medias. Let us know what you think about the Bad Batch, what you want from Star Wars going forward. We'll probably get more with D23 coming up this summer.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Most likely, they paid a lot of money for Star Wars. They need to use it.
They've been really quiet lately, which is obviously because they're saving all that info for D23.
Yeah.
Good. All right, with that being said, Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Matterhorn Yodelers. Please remember before your bobsled comes to a complete stop to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember,
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.